Here's a quote from today's guest that really stuck out to me. Start with the story, sell anything but a book, and sell the most expensive thing you can. I think this embodies the spirit of going beyond the book quite well. And today's guest, Dave Vergutz, has gone beyond the book to develop Scare Mail, a story letter that's told through 24 letters delivered to readers right to their mailbox throughout the course of a year. It's an immersive experience. It includes bonuses, collectibles, and it makes $3 million a year. One story. It's incredible. Today, David's going to share with us how he built Scare Mail and help you be able to go beyond the book to build an empire for yourself. Now, this episode is pretty special because I actually went out to the Scare Mail HQ to interview David in person. I would love to do more in-person episodes, so if you are someone going beyond the book in a really wild way and want me to come out and visit you, I am definitely down to explore that because nothing beats an in-person conversation. Here's the tragic part though. We had a video in the warehouse of me and David recording this whole podcast. We did it inside of his warehouse. In the same warehouse he ships all of his letters from. Unfortunately, that video got corrupted and is now lost. I talked to the software I filmed it on. I was with their support, and it's a great software. It just had a glitch, unfortunately. It happens. We move on. The good news is that if you're watching the YouTube version, I still have some B-roll that I got at the warehouse. You'll still be able to see some clips here and there. But the actual conversation of me and David talking is audio only, which I guess if you're listening to the podcast, then great. Life is good for you. Now, I'm super excited for this episode. And what really stuck out to me is that David didn't have all the answers when he got started. This in a great way. He barely knew what he was doing. He went all in, he dove in, he was able to test and see that it was working. And then from there, has learned so much along the way and continued growing, learning, and optimizing his processes. Going beyond the book doesn't require multiple years of education. You don't even have to know what you want to do. It's about getting imaginative and using the resources, the people around you, and this community we have here to be able to go out and do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect on day one. You don't have to have all the processes down. He was literally licking the envelopes, each one himself in the beginning, but you end up learning and doing things better. And I think David embodies that better than anyone and really shares with you the roadmap for getting started, testing if something beyond the book is going to work, and then actually going and doing it. And this same process you can use not for just going beyond the book and making story letters or videos out of your books or other cool products, but you can use for your actual stories themselves, which is crucial. Now, one last reminder before I get into it. I'm coming out with something special soon, and it's called the Beyond the Book Mastermind. So after working with a lot of authors, we've had this organic community form of, it's roughly a dozen of us in Discord meeting every week. And it's this incredible mastermind community that is probably the most special place I've ever been in to talk about marketing, business, and growing as authors, using new technologies, going beyond the book to do really innovative things like what David's doing. I want to start inviting more people in this community. I'm not quite ready yet to open it up to the public. I think I'm going to do a little bit of a beta in maybe 45 days. And then in maybe 6 months or so, I'm going to actually share it more with the world. I want to take things slow. I want to make things measured. But I really think CUNY is the best way to learn about going beyond the book through a very intentional experience. You can sign up for the wait list down below. There's a link to that. It's beyondthebookacademy.com. But if you want in now, you can also email me at hello@authorsidekick.com. I've been letting people in ad hoc. If you think someone's a good fit, if you think you're a good fit, let me know. Things are pretty informal now, but in the best possible way, just a group of people coming together. So if you're interested in joining and think you'd be a good fit, just email me and I'm happy to chat with you from there. And we can then see if you're a good fit. All right, that's enough of me yapping. Let's dive into this episode with Dave Vergutz. Today, I'm with David Vergutz. We're spending 24 hours with the king of story letters. He's taken one story and has turned it into a business that makes $3 million a year. And what's even crazier is he's done this all in the last year using story letters. We're going to share more about what story letters are and how he's done it. But it's been a mind-blowing weekend being with you, and I cannot wait to get to this conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, man.
We're literally inside his warehouse where he ships out 100,000 letters a month. plus
Yeah. About 100,000 at this point.
from this facility.
From here, with just the staff, yeah.
Mind blowing. I don't think I've even received a fraction of that letters in my lifetime. 100,000 letters. What does it take to ship that out? How did you even, this facility, this is crazy. Or like in your empire now.
Yeah. There's involvement is not really, it's not a leap, right? It's baby steps forward. Like it's encountering problems along the way when you first get started and then taking steps forward that are not only building what you're trying to build in the future, but also like supporting your operations and making your life easier so you can continue to build along the way. So when people say baby steps, I think that's probably a good term. It's overused and people don't really know what that looks like. Like, how do you go from like to this, to a facility like this? And the answer is just one little step at a time. So we started off in my loft of my house. But prior to that, ideation for this was just on my kitchen table. There's a picture of me on the floor mapping out all my letters, the artwork that goes with them. That type of real stuff, that type of getting down on the ground and mapping out the letters and having a storyboard and putting it all together, that's what we do automatically, right? So we don't really look at it for big vision stuff. We're not looking at it like, oh, we ideate all the time. The big vision stuff, like, is this going to lead to a facility? And the answer is, at the time, I didn't think so. But what I was doing there on the floor and mapping this out and getting strategic with it was a baby step along the way to get to here.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. But why don't you share what even are inside these letters? Shipping out 100,000 a month. What is a story letter? What happens here?
Yeah. So it's a common theme. Like, so do I just chop up a book into 24 letters? Do I chop up a book into 6 letters? And the answer is no. This is a story that can only be told through letters. So it's not a story that's told within letters, right? It's not taking a novel, putting chapter 1 and letter 1 and 2. We're not doing that. We're telling a story between characters that their correspondence it has to make sense for it to be in letters. In this story, my characters are terrified of the internet. They believe the internet is basically the boogeyman and it's coming out to get them. And so now the only way they can communicate is through letters. And that really limits them as far as how often they can communicate, how they can be strategic about it. And so it gives the characters strengths and weaknesses, and it gives them more life and vitality through these letters than you would if you just took a novel and put it into letter format. That's not what this is. If I want to do story letters, it's if you just chop up a novel into 24 letters and try to make it work, you're going to find really dissatisfied customers because that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a story that's told through letters.
Makes total sense. And that story is told through letters, like multiple. So like how many are in your story?
Yeah. So it's linear. So it's 24 letters over 12 months. And so the conclusion doesn't happen until letter 24. So automatically there's this sense of desire when you buy this thing.
Yeah.
It's a delayed gratification for the next year. You don't know, you're not going to get the answer until a year from now. And so we're selling people on that because this is an instant gratification world, and we can offer them some opportunities to not feel instantly gratified, but still feel gratified and enjoying it at the same time.
Yep. You're bringing the mailbox to life and you're bringing people together. Now, let's zoom out before you got here. Share with us, for those who are like brand new to you, tell us a little bit about David Verguts. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you had this warehouse, because I know it's a recent relative thing in your life. Give us your author story.
Yeah. So my author story is very similar to a lot of other folks. Like, I had this vision that I was going to stand in a bookstore with all my friends there and all my fans there, and they were going to ask me questions about my book and when the next one's coming. And then we're going to do a signing, and it's going to be this big event. And so I wrote my first book thinking of that, right? And I wrote epic fantasy. And a lot of people know my story into this. At the same time, I was a personal trainer. So I was big in the fitness world. And so I was building a business there, a very lucrative business there. I had a gym and all that. And I, at the same time, started writing because I was like, oh man, I can write from anywhere. And yeah, there's a methodology to storytelling, but I can create a story from nothing, from whatever's in my own imagination, versus something like fitness where it's okay, we can only create in hard work that we're selling to the client.
Yeah.
To them, we can say we help sculpt, but it's not really creating. I wanted to create something. I wanted to create a story. And I had all these cool stories in my head like everybody else did. And I started with one, and it wasn't really gratifying for me. Like, I wrote the first book. It felt good to get to the end and I felt great about it, but it didn't feel like secure. It was dark fantasy. That's where I started writing.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy who said, write a horror book. I think you're fantasy is a little too dark for dark fantasy. Like it was beyond grim dark. So it was more on the horror than it was on the fantasy. And so I said, okay. So I wrote a horror book. And at this time I was testing ads, and I had gone through some self-publishing courses and that sort of thing to learn the ecosystem, this new author world that I was now a part of. A beautiful world of people who care about each other and want to see others succeed. And it's not like fitness where we're not trying to poach each other's clients and readers. If you help somebody, that's likely going to help you too. This is a great place to be. And so I was already going all in on this community. And fast forward, I was doing pretty much the KU route, right? So we're doing a book a month. I did that for 8 months. And at that time, I started seeing a dip in Amazon, and I didn't like the way things were going, where I had to either buy leads off of Facebook, or I had to hope and pray they went to the back of the book to capture their email, because I don't want just one buyer. I want repeat buyers. And I was realizing that like these customers that I was sending to Amazon are not my customers. They're Amazon's customers. I'm the customer for Amazon. That was really tough for me to wrap my head around, and trying to find ways around that. And when I felt that dissatisfaction, I started looking for other options. Like, where is my future going? It's not going to be in a mailing list that I just send to Amazon. I can't trust that. It's direct is where I started going. So I tried a couple of different things along the way in the direct sales route. Like I had a subscription that was based off of writing short stories and then putting those on YouTube and multi-purposing them. Like,
super cool.
Giving away my creative freedom to allow clients or customers to vote on aspects of the story based on their tier level within my subscription service. So if you were the highest tier, you could veto out other votes. So gamified the writing short stories and then monetized on YouTube.
I love that.
So that was one of my first forays into direct sales. And then I realized the Amazon algorithm wasn't helping me. I'd built up a substantial list of about 20 to 30,000 readers, and I went direct, all in. And it was a mid-afternoon where I said, man, something's got to change. I can't keep doing this. What is pumping out another book going to do for me? Yes, I love to write, but I love to create more. And I think that was where I was like, another book is not going to be it. It's not going to be the solution.
And at this time in your business, this was like, what time was this? Because then we were like in February 2025. How long ago was this moment you're describing when you were feeling
this time last year?
Wow. So 1 year ago today.
1 year ago today.
And you were not full-time at that point?
No, I was still working a day job. I was writing at night, any opportunity I could. I was doing craft shows on weekends. I like farmers markets. I was making like $500 to $1,000 a day doing those. So I was like, I'm just going to go all in on farmers markets because it's working. And that was a route I was going to do, a combination of like my direct sales. And then I was going to do the farmers craft market. And then I was going to do my subscription. Between those three, I was making a livable wage. And at that point, that's when I really started looking at the opportunities that were involved in direct sales beyond my books, like really looking at my IP as property that can be manipulated and transformed and sent out again to collect more money for me and collect more readers for me. And so I started looking at solutions for growing the business, growing my IP, growing my customer base. And it started by, if we had time for this story, it's a real quick one, and this will lead into Storytell.
We're here. We're not only here for the stories, we're inside where all the stories are. So yes, share with us the story.
Okay. So I was looking out my front door. I live in a beautiful neighborhood, and there's a cul-de-sac. And I was like, I thought it'd be really cool to shut down the cul-de-sac and just have an old school scholastic book fair with a bunch of local authors.
Yeah.
And just have it as like a monthly thing right there in the neighborhood. So it's not a parking lot of a PetSmart or something. Sure. It's a neighborhood, and just bringing people together. And then I was like, my eyes drifted back towards the focus, and I saw the mailbox. I said, there's nothing good in that thing. There's going to be bills in there. There's going to be jury duty. There's going to be pig slips. There's a scene from The Grinch, jury duty, pig slip. Yeah, that's what the mailbox had in store. And I said, I wonder if I can change that. I got an idea. And so I started looking at basically epistolic writing, just writing books, stories, novel through letters.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to solve that problem for the reader right there. That mailbox sucks, and we're going to fix it. And that's where the ideation started.
So that's such an interesting framework for people to approach their lives through. Like, you're looking around the world and going, basically, what is boring, what is challenging for readers? It could be a moment in their lives, or it could be like a physical thing that they experience in their days, or just a medium that is on it. And how do we inject that with something that's more, because that's what we're trying to do here at Storytellers ultimately,
Right.
is entertain people.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, we're entertainers. And so the nonfiction guys are really great at this, right? Because they have a list of problems they know they want to solve that they're experts in. Right. So the difference is, as fiction writers, is that we have a list of issues we want to solve for the reader too. And it goes beyond just entertainment, right? So if we can solve other things, auxiliary issues for them, like the mailbox, that's why the story. So yeah, you still get to be the storyteller you want to be, but also look at opportunities for solving issues for readers within the framework of your stories. I started taking a nonfiction approach to a fiction book.
And that's totally like how you can go beyond the book right there. That is going beyond the book. So now walk me through a year ago. You basically started to come up with this idea for, I think there's something in the mailbox. Now it's this massive empire where you're sending out 100 calls and letters a month, which is still unbelievable. I'll show a picture on the screen of it as we were like shipping out and literally bringing some of these letters to the mailbox earlier today. Not the mailbox, the post office. 50,000 of them, just the shipment today. Yeah, just today. So I was helping David and his team with it. It was mind blowing. Like, this is just so many letters, even just like the international letters. That stack of letters was insane. That was just being sent international. Now, between where we are now, sending out literally 50,000 letters a day, and when you got this idea, what were some of the biggest mistakes you made?
Oh man. So mistakes were probably the one that didn't need to be the biggest mistake, which was the story itself. Getting more familiar with that medium. Because prior to this, I hadn't ever had a story letter before, and I knew they existed. I'm not the first person in this space. I think I'm the first indie author in this space to tell it this way, at this scale, in this method, with the way things are done. But I'm not the first one to do it. There are plenty of other companies that do it. And so I didn't do my research. I just went all in. I said, I'm going to try this idea 100%. And to be honest, I probably didn't need to go 100%. I probably could have tested it. I probably could have tested it to a smaller market first before my list. So we talked about that before, is how I hit my list with it first. And that was the good indication. I'm like, okay, I made 200 sales off my list. This is a go.
200 sales of $100+ product.
$100. Yeah. So we did $20,000 on launch,
which is epic,
for pre-order for a couple of months with nothing but an envelope and a couple of pictures. So like, it doesn't take a lot. It was shot with an iPhone on my Shopify store. Like, the images are still up there and you can see them. It's got my wife in them. Like, those are the ones to this day that sell the best. As the first one I ever took. We don't even use those envelopes anymore.
I was literally, that was very cool to see that even this morning, seeing that those are still the ads performing. That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
At times it's the most simple, authentic thing you do.
Yep. And so I think the biggest mistake people do is, okay, there are people out there who have probably done the things that you're looking to do, but maybe you can learn something from them before you overstretch yourself, right? So you can try and reach out, try and analyze businesses, try to analyze storytelling methods. Like, when I look to create products within the horror field, I don't look in horror. I don't look at what anybody else is doing in horror. I look at what people are doing in romance. And I think I told you about this, is that the person I most followed to learn how to do TikTok content when that was my big push was Willow Winters.
Yeah. Yeah, she's fantastic. If you have been followed Willow Winters on TikTok, she's got 250,000 followers and has a warehouse of her own. Maybe I'll go visit that one day, Willow. If you'd let me visit, I would love to see your warehouse. But she also has her own empire with book boxes. And you're right, she crushes it on TikTok.
Yeah. So, and the reason I watched the romance is because the emotional connection, right? Romance, the love feeling, is something that I can tap into because I'm a horror writer. So I can tap into horror with other people. And so it's an instant connection with the audience. A lot of genres like have to go about it differently, right? So sci-fi is not an emotion attached to it. There's a promised an epic story, and through that story, there's emotions and stuff like that, but it's not inherent. It's not expected. In horror, you're expected to be horrified. In romance, you're expected to be romanced. And it's because that's why I latched on to other romance writers who are doing this, who are cultivating these rabid fan bases, who are just obsessed with the stuff that they do, where they can pretty much brand and merch anything at this point.
Yeah.
Because the readers are just that emotionally invested in what they're creating. And so that's where I would go. I would look to businesses that were already established, that were doing very well, maybe in a lateral market, right? So like romance or horror to romance. And then that way it can save you a lot of heartache along the way. Like, when we were first printing our labels, we were printing them on Avery labels, hundreds of them. And we were licking envelopes until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's how we got going. And if you're not willing to lick envelopes at 3 o'clock in the morning when you got to work at 4 a.m., then, you probably don't need to be doing this. But
There's something beautiful about that. Like, you don't have to know the best way to get started. And in retrospect, what you were doing maybe not even a mistake, but not the best way to do it. But the fact that you were doing it is what got you to learn. So you have to be willing to do it. I do think good advice though on being measured. But you said specifically, like, you would have done a smaller launch before your list to test even more. What would have that looked like?
I'd look for a percentage yield, right? So take my top fans
And just reach out to them.
reach out to them, and probably even give it away for free, just to them. Because worst case scenario, what am I out? I'm out a 24-part story letters, whatever I could possibly deliver via email if they understood it's just a test. Get their forethought on it and say, what do you think about this? Would you buy this? That's what I would do.
So do almost a beta launch before the pre-launch.
I would. And
Very
pick your top performers, because that's the people who are going to pay your bills anyways. So it's the top people in your...
They're going to have the most understanding as well. If you kill the project, they'll be like, okay, cool. I got to see something early. Didn't work, but I got to see it.
You got to see it early and maybe even continue to deliver. I know an author, and we're going to meet with him this weekend, that he launched his own story letters. And they didn't perform very well in the ads. And he couldn't really make the conversions work, and he struggled a little bit with it. But he was able to deliver that story itself, the IP he had created for the story letters, to his super fans that are already on his subscription. So he gave them an additional product, additional promise for nothing while testing it. And so that's what I would do. And that's where I was talking about my subscription before, where I was writing short stories and I was giving my readers the opportunity to vote on them. And then I was monetizing that by putting them up on with the AdSense money. So that's at the worst case scenario.
You made money on the AdSense.
I made money on the AdSense. Yeah. Best case scenario, I gave my readers something that they were paying for. And so that's what I would do. I would reach out to your super fans first, start with them. And even if a percentage yield of them is okay, if we only got 10% that like, it's probably not a good investment. Maybe it needs tweaking. Maybe it needs some more ideation.
Totally. And I know you talked about adapting ideas from other industries and bringing it into what you do. And one thing I've noticed seeing your warehouse is how many things you do that are so creative. And these are boxes that you have. What I'm showing is this is the box that I can put my story letters in.
Yeah.
Now, you don't just do this. You were showing stickers. You are figuring out all these different ways to serve your readers. Where do you get ideas like this? And how do you still come up with ideas? What makes you think, oh, this is a good idea for Scaremall, or that's not going to be good for Scaremall?
Yeah. So I'm always looking, is this something that's going to serve, is this going to find me new readers, or is this going to service the readers I currently have? And so the issue with the book box, it was that I didn't have anything to offer them at first. And so I was trying to see if maybe I can get away with them, because producing this kind of stuff at scale is a lot more horrible than trying to produce it not at scale. And trying to create something for yourself is even more difficult. So let's say you're creating 100 boxes somehow, piecing it together. So there's this weird middle ground when you're like, okay, do I go all in on a product and buy 5,000 units? And if I've got 5,000 units, where am I going to store them? And how am I going to ship them and all this stuff? Do I even know what they're going to buy them? So there's that big jump from, hey, we could do this cool thing. And so like, we were talking about baby steps. Like before I had this book box, I had a sticker pack made because I saw people were doing their own book boxes because I didn't have one available. And so since they were doing their own book box, I was like, I call it a book box, a letter box. Yeah. I said, I can create a sticker pack because stickers are a whole lot cheaper than, let's say, these boxes if I was buying only in small quantities.
Sure.
So like I bought 1,000 sticker sets and it cost me $200. Not a bad investment. But what I failed to realize is that they were already offering me solutions. They're like, I don't have a place to store my letters. I don't have a place to put it. Like we started seeing this too with, in other reader groups where they have thumb holders to hold the book open while you're reading it with one hand, like a little thumb thing, just to give your thumb a little bit of relief. These are simple problems that you could be the solution for. And so like having a place to store the letters reminds you of, why shouldn't I as a author maybe sell a stand to put my books on, especially if they buy like a special hardback leather bound.
Yeah, they want to show it off.
Show it off. It's a collector's piece. They're really going to grab that leather bound and read it every year, or are they going to have it there and maybe let their other copy, the paperback, get beat up while they're reading that story over and over again. So like looking at solutions like that, we're like, maybe I can sell the book stand alongside with the book. And so that's what this is, a box to keep the letters in. That's all. So it's listening to your readers, listening to what they're asking for. And that comes from a couple things. That comes from, you have to stay cognizant. You have to stay engaged. You have to stay engaged beyond YouTube or beyond your newsletter. So, and that would be one more thing I'd suggest early on is like start funneling people towards a group, Facebook group, any kind of group where you can get outside stuff from them interacting, user generated content. Get that. It's free and it tells you the solutions that your readers are looking for. They're in plenty of groups. They're in hundreds of groups, but on occasion they'll scroll through yours. And when they do, sometimes they'll post pictures and those pictures will tell you everything you need to know about them. So that's what I would do. Listen to your readers and listen to them beyond the message, the occasional email they send you. Listen to them in a place where you have control, as much control as you possibly can.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just thinking as you're talking about the different boxes that you made, and I know you did a huge bulk order of even the stickers, the letters, the printers you now have. There's like a lot of almost like manufacturing muscle that goes into this, like truly. How do you work with manufacturers? How do you get things made? Because you've gotten so many things made for your business.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah. So like when it comes down to machinery, like a lot of the machinery that we're doing, our business can survive with just our labor, right? We don't need the machines. The machines just make the process easier. So machines are one of those things like if you can afford it, buy it later, right? So do everything you can manually. So like we looked at the option of paying for a printer, a local printer to print on cardboard for us and click it out and then color it with ink. And then we would assemble it. Right. And so that would offer a book box solution. So it's like, what can I work with what I have here before I can move into things like machinery and before I can move into distributors? Like if you're looking to say, oh, I want to get a bunch of book boxes made or a bunch of sleeves made, and you can't go to Sticker Mule and get like a bunch of custom made book sleeves made. You have to go to a manufacturer somewhere. And a lot of times it's offshore. Those offshore manufacturers don't want to talk to you unless your quantity is 500 or above. And if your quantity is 500, that means your cost per item is extremely high. So they'll work with you for 500, but even 500 is not really manageable for a lot of authors right now. I know a lot of authors don't want to carry 500 paperbacks. That's a lot of space that it takes up. And so what I would say is like working with manufacturers is saying, okay, can we test the product first with what we have? Is it selling? Are people happy with it? Okay, now how can we reduce costs from there, right? To collect up more of a margin. And then how can we get faster at it? So now we're faster. Now we're more efficient. So the manufacturer is just like the machine. It's only there if you really need it. Could I make these book boxes myself? Yeah, I bought the stickers. I could buy the cardboard. I could piece them together. And it's probably what I was going to do prior to going to this. And so like, I think there's still value in sweat equity and being able to pick up something, fold it together into something else, and having maybe that be as like your starting idea, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you test. And that's what, if it works. And then once you put that sweat equity in, you're like, okay, this is selling. Now I can reduce costs. Now I can buy at scale. Now I can operate machinery. So like our first labels were Avery labels, very expensive in comparison and very heavy. That's the other thing we didn't realize too, is that labels increase the weight of our letters. So our first letter batches were very expensive getting started because it increased the weight of those individual letters. It's stuff you don't realize until the end, until you look back.
That's, all those little details, they add up. And it gets me thinking about all operations that go into this. I want to dive into that, but my first question for you is more just big picture. I know you have a lot of things going on. Being with you the last day, there's driving to the post office, there's calls about ads, there's everything happening here every day just to get the letters packed. And I know you at your core, because we've talked so much, like you're an amazing business person, incredible entrepreneur, but you love storytelling. We've talked about some different ideas and, you could do this and do that, because there's future things coming out, which we'll talk about, which are really exciting. But you always go back to the stories. That's what you love.
Yeah.
How do you find time and space for the stories when you've also got 100,000 letters on your mind?
Yeah. And so when you're at the phase when you've got that kind of scale, there's naturally going to be people who work for you, right? And so people don't realize that my most valuable asset here is not this facility. It's not the machinery. It's the people over there working for me. So like
They're literally back there right now.
literally back there right now. Yeah. So they're working there. You work today for free. I work today.
He's been a very kind host, very generous.
And then I got 2 assistants that are working for me as well. So I've got a staff, right? And I've got a night shift crew that's going to come in a few hours as well. So like these types of operations, once you get to a scale, you're going to need help. And giving duties to your help, it needs to be very specific. So what I'm saying is if it's taking your time away from storytelling and you can give it to somebody else who works for you and they can feel gratified and they can care about what you're trying to create, they can see the bigger vision of Scaremail, they can see the bigger vision of the Master of Malice brand. If they can see that, then they're going to feel more invested in what they're building for you. They're not going to just be a wrench turner. My people are not wrench turners. They care about this company. They care about us. They want to grow it. They have fun coming to work. So like when you're at that scale and you're hiring people, you're not hiring people for an hourly wage. It's an investment. And that's what I would say is because you're investing in getting your own time back. Because if I didn't have those folks, you and me would be stuffing those envelopes right now while we're talking.
Sure. Oh my God. Yeah. No, you probably wouldn't get any sleep at all. It'd be impossible at this stage, honestly. But then walk me through, like, how did you actually, what order do you make hires in? Like, you could share, like, maybe you don't share exactly the order you made hires in, but like what order would you consider? Cause like we all have, every author talks about getting a PA to help them with this and that. We see it in so many different groups. I need an ad person. I needed this person. What person do you really need to start with?
Yeah. I think the easiest move would be just ask yourself, like, do I have more time or more money right now? What do I have more of? Because if you have more time, then you don't need anybody.
Yeah.
You have yourself. And it's very hard to give up money when you don't have any money, but you have plenty of time. I would say the first thing you need to do is invest in yourself. If you can learn it yourself and take that over, then you should be doing that. That's the greatest investment in your business you could ever make is by saying, I'm willing to do this because most people hire out because they want to get back to the writing. They just want to get back to the writing. I want to make sure I don't have to write my own emails each week because that takes up an hour of my time. And so they hire a VA and okay, at that point you've said, okay, my time is worth that VA's hourly wage. And you're like, okay, I got back that hour. But then there's the other part of it is this thing moving the needle for you? Is this thing that you're trying to task out moving the needle? Or is it just a task you're handing off so you can write more? Is writing more making you more money?
And the weird part, in which we've already touched on, but for a lot of authors, the answer might actually be the more you write, you're not actually making more money.
No, it's costing you a lot.
Because you're spending a lot on editing, cover design. You're not creating something that
I have one story that makes me $3 million a year. One story.
There we go. One story, $3 million. That's everything. And when it comes to thinking about scaling that audience, one thing you've mentioned that is so important is like, and we were already talking about, it was funny. It almost feels like you're always in a middle ground, right? But there's that distinct period when you're getting started and not making much money, when it's okay, got the bootstraps there. And then there's like this level where now you have the ability to hire people and things are going well. And for you, like that happened very quickly. And it sounds like for a lot of authors, it does tend to be from the outside. It took you years.
Yeah.
But there's a moment where it's like, I wasn't making very much. And then 3 months later, it scales. And I know even now it's funny because, you're now at this scale, but like this still brings a lot of problems. When you get bigger, you'll have less problems. You'll have less of these headaches because you'll have larger staff to help you, better systems, all of that. But how did you scale Scaremail? And how do you think other authors should approach scaling something when, let's say they do a pre-launch and it works? What's your next move after that?
Yeah. And so the process of, I would say, okay, you've got a product, you've got people who bought it. Now you're looking at fulfillment. How can I get this to my customers in the most effective way so they're satisfied? And then what are their next steps after they get the product? So the beautiful part about Scaremail is that they're in my ecosystem for at least a year, at least. So I've got plenty of time for customer satisfaction. A lot of authors may not have that opportunity when they only have a book that they sold that customer. And so getting that, how could you enhance the experience beyond the book where they're like, okay, I've got the book now. What's my next step? Is it go to the back of the book and sign up for the free thing? Or is there something else I can encourage them to do? Each one of my books comes with a thank you card that tells my story about how I became an author. On that is a 15% off discount code for any book in my store. Like that little card, I can track the conversions on it. And I can tell you how many people have used that discount code. And so we sell about $10,000 a month in books. And I can tell you that we have at least 2% of people who are using that code again out of that 10, and it didn't cost me anything. So that's my next step, right?
Yeah.
So you buy a book, here's the next step, go buy another book. If it's go to the back of the book, fine. But the idea is to always look at like, where is your customer base? Where are they coming into your system? What are they buying? And then what is their next steps? And so like, how can I get the books to them faster, cheaper, or better, right? So that's the only three options you got in business. You got good, fast, and cheap. Pick two. You can have two. So most of the time, people don't really care about fulfillment, right? Oh, one book here, I got to ship it out tomorrow. I can drop it off at the post office, whatever. But let's say you got 30 books. And then 2 days later, you had a weird phase and you got another 30 books.
Yeah.
And you got another 30 books.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at, okay, 30 is not necessarily a scale at the scale of 100,000, right? But
it's something.
But it is something. And packet, and that's a weird middle ground between the onesies and twosies and between the big scale operations where you've got a team of staff who are stuffing books for you. So like that weird in between phase, then you start looking at, okay, maybe I can hire somebody part-time. Maybe I can back off my hours at work so I can fulfill my own orders. So you start looking at, is this an opportunity right now to move the needle, or am I just, what's more useful for me right now? Is my money more useful, or is my time more useful? And so when you're at that weird phase, that weird in between, I can't tell you where that answer is. You have to decide for yourself. But I can tell you that unless you have found something that is consistently moving the needle for you, that you could then hire out to somebody else to do for you, you get back your time. Otherwise, you're just turning the wrench. Nobody's actually progressing in anything. You're not building anything.
And I see that happen a lot of times where an author might hire someone to do social media work for them, but their social media work isn't converting to anything. So they're paying for someone $100 a week to do something for them.
Yeah. To post a couple images on Facebook.
Yeah.
And ask a question in the reader group. What are you reading today?
And it's not the person's fault who's doing the work.
It's not.
It's that the work in and of itself wasn't creating value for that business. And a really good book that I'll recommend everyone is called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Talks like all about this in detail, but there's still something really important because, okay, so I want to buy back my time. I've gotten understanding that the more I grow, I can see where things are the most valuable and taking the most of my time, outsource those and spend where I can get the highest ROI, my own time. But let's say I'm still at the stage where I set up my business. I maybe have a unique, last night I was talking about this weird thing of, can you ship someone like almost like a stuffed animal that has a story over 6 months, right? Something like that, where you get this, you pay $100 for this stuffed animal that tells you a story over a period of time. I get my list to like it, my existing audience. Maybe my existing audience is 5 people and I get them to like it. The biggest problem every author has is, how do I get my audience to be bigger? So how did you get your audience to be bigger? Because I know so many people have come to you from Scare Mail, and that's how they know you.
Yeah, growing an audience, I would say that the easiest thing to do is unite them under an idea. Unite them under an idea. If you're just like, hey, I'm a great author and you love my books, that's great. You're a dime a dozen amongst hundreds of other people saying the same thing. And you're not fighting necessarily for that reader, but you are fighting for, let's say, their attention, because like you spent a lot of money to get that book in front of them with an ad. But if some other ad beats you out, then yeah, that author's not your competitor, but you lost that time, you lost that money that could have been your sale. So uniting a customer under an idea. Scare Mail didn't start with, here's a story told through letters, it's cool. It started with a message. The mailbox sucks. Let's fix it together. Let's get back to being human. And so that's the idea. Part of Scare Mail too is like, there's a lot of goodwill, and goodwill that supports the messaging, it supports the brand. I have been authentic with my readers since day one. It has not changed with Scare Mail. I've not changed who I am. I still sign off on all my newsletters, officer friendly out. So I'll never stop being a cop. But like, I have maintained that authenticity from start to finish, and readers resonate with that. And so one of the messages I said we were going to unite behind is, we're going to get back to being human. We're going to get off these screens, even if just a little bit, and we're going to do it with intent.
Yeah.
And I started something called Caramel, which is Scare Mail with a silent S. And it's a pen pal service. And it each week or each month, people can sign up from my newsletter and who have purchased Scare Mail. So it's entry only. And my system will automatically pair them with a pen pal from across the world from my own reader list. So I'm uniting not only my readers with me, but I'm uniting them with each other. I have 6 people that I know are still to this day sending letters back and forth every other day to each other through the mail based on the pen pal service. They're best friends and they have plans to meet each other in London next year.
Oh, that's so cute. That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So like that type of thing, that is something that you cannot just buy with a book. You have to go with it with intent. You have to have an idea. So look, I had this idea for a story. It's called Big Effing Spider. And it was going to unite people under the idea that spiders are scary. Right. And so there's going to be a bunch of merchandise, a giant spider stuff, and it's going to be silly and over the top, but it's still the idea of uniting people under a simple thought, a simple idea. And the story can give them the solution to that, right? The story is always the solution to that problem, but you have to be like, okay, what problem am I addressing? How can we do it together? The author, the person who has the solution, the reader who has the issue, we're going to solve this together.
I'll end it off with 2 more questions I have for you. My second last question is, what do you see as like the big advice that you would give to any author based on the things you've learned in your career? I think that one thing we know is true. There's only one Scare Mail, but people are going to go build their own empires. Maybe it's selling ebooks, audiobooks. Maybe it's getting into book boxes. Maybe someone else wants to do something with letters. But what have you learned? What advice would you give to folks starting out?
Yeah. There's all kinds of platitudes we've heard in this industry, right? Community is everything. Build an audience, tell a great story. But I really think it is that if you're going to try something, you need to give it your all, your everything. If you're going to try something, even in the short term, if it's going to take your time away, it deserves every ounce of what you have, because only then will you know if it worked or not, because you tried your damnedest to make it work. So like with Scare Mail, it was one of those things I said, we did the test, we went all in. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Do the test, go all in. And so at that point, what do you have? You have either lessons learned or you have an empire. One of the two.
I've learned a lot of lessons myself. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
You got to stay in the game. Keep doing things to learn. I love it. Now, you've come so far. It's a short period of time. It's incredible. But I know this is still the beginning of your story. What is the future of Scare Mail? What is the future of your business?
Yeah. Story from the beginning, story to the end. It all starts and ends with a story. And so I will never stop creating stories. There's a Scare Mail 2 launching this year. It is a whole different product, told the same way, but we're doing full immersion audio for the first time ever seen before in letter format. So innovative new things in this industry where you will not only be able to get the experience of Scare Mail, but you'll be able to listen to it and read along as the characters write it out on pen and paper on the letters. You get to hear that happening in real time and be a part of that story. That is leading into a full-on augmented reality game where we are going to turn, through Scare Mail, through the brand, turn your house into a haunted house using props, using different mediums, podcasts, imagery, letters in the mail, emails, phone calls. We're going to turn your house into a haunted house. It starts and ends with story every single time. So while I'm doing all this stuff, I am still a storyteller.
I love it. Thank you, everyone, for being on this episode of the Beyond the Book podcast. Thanks so much for coming on, man. And
yeah, thanks, man.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I'm actually filming this episode from London right now. So if you made it to the end, hello from London. I'm hosting 4 story suppers throughout London, Manchester, Birmingham, and Dublin, because I had to deliver the big pencil, which if you don't know about the big pencil, you can see it in the background here on YouTube, but it's essentially a massive 4-foot pencil that someone won at the costume contest I held 2 or 3 weeks ago. Very fun. And I got to deliver pencils to them. So I'm going to Dublin to do that. I'm staying with my brother in London, spending some time in Europe. I love it here. Wherever you're at in the world, I'd love to hear from you. I am being nomadic now and probably plan to be nomadic for quite some time. It's just a great way to meet people, great way to see the world. And I'm fortunate that my work, being able to serve you all and create hopefully some really helpful content, tools, and technology for y'all, allows me to be remote. So that's what I've been doing. I'd love to hear what y'all have been up to. It's finally close to summer and I love the summer weather. So I'm happy. I'm definitely happy. And it's been really cool to see y'all support the podcast, to see your support of the Author Marketing Superpowers deck. I have another cool launch towards like the end of April, beginning of May, most likely. And then another cool thing to announce end of May. And then another cool thing June into July. So it's a busy couple months of me coming back to the industry, but some really exciting stuff coming up. So stay tuned. You're in the right place. This podcast, I'll update you all here. My newsletter, authorsidekick.com, another great place. I always love your feedback. Let me know what episodes you want to hear. Let me know what you're looking for here. I feel like I can do multiple episodes a week of Beyond the Book because I haven't even proactively tried getting guests yet. Everything's been like a mix of inbound friends and like authors in the community saying, hey, you should talk to this person, and then connecting me to them, which I'm endlessly grateful for. And I literally just feel like there's more conversations that could be had. But I'm also like struggling because I'm like, would 2 episodes a week be like too much for y'all? I'm looking to hire a podcast editor like the next, let's call it 90 days. And with that, I'll have more capacity to focus on the actual interviewing side and the research, because it takes me roughly 2 to 3 hours minimum research per podcast. Some podcasts I'm reading full books beforehand to prep. There's one coming up recently that is going to be amazing about breaking into retail. The stuff coming here is just insane. I'm mind blown and I can't wait. But when it comes to your listening habits, I would love to know, is 2 episodes a week too much for you? I don't want to necessarily always do 2 episodes a week, but if I'm able to do so and there's just like a lot of content and a lot of great interviews, then I don't want to necessarily be closed off to it, because I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm either recording interviews 6 weeks out and then just not recording interviews for 6 weeks straight, or I suppose having a huge backlog or having to release more than one a week. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. So let me know. Would you listen to 2 episodes a week of Beyond the Book? I can't make a promise it'll happen every week, but maybe sometime this year I'll try to get to my process and production so that I can deliver 2 high quality episodes to you a week, if that's something you'd find valuable. If you don't think it would be valuable, then 1 a week is what I'll try and stick to. All right. You let me know. Y'all are awesome. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, don't forget, together, we are boundless.